Are you overwhelmed by the challenge of personalizing communication for thousands of students? That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. From nudging prospective students to guiding those already on their journey, AI assistants don't just automate, they write, build, and optimize every step of your digital campaigns. Discover how at element451.com/AI team.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to a special edition of Higher Ed Pulse. I'm your host, Mallory Wilsey, and this is Enrollify's 2024 Hall of Fame, a celebration of the year's most impactful thought leaders. We've curated key moments from our Hall of Famers' appearances across the Enrollify network, highlighting the ideas and insights that are shaping the future of our industry. From groundbreaking takes on AI to bold strategies for student engagement, these voices set the tone for innovation in 2024. Let's jump right into today's episode. Today, we welcome Josh Charles to the Enrollify 2024 Hall of Fame. Josh is the Director of Web Strategy and Technology at Rutgers Business School. With a passion for fostering collaboration and driving meaningful change, Josh has been a powerful voice in breaking down barriers and inspiring leadership. This year, he joined Shane Beglini on Breaking Silos and participated in a special live Higher Ed Pulse episode at High Ed Web with me. High Ed Web is now known as Digital Collegium, and Josh is a board member for the organization. In the following clips, Josh shares invaluable leadership tips for higher ed pros, including how to work effectively with campus leadership. He highlights the importance of busting silos, not only within an institution, but even with competitors, and fostering strong relationships to create a culture of collaboration. You'll also hear Josh discuss his experience breaking down silos within the Rutgers Business School, offering actionable insights on how cross-campus partnerships can lead to better outcomes for students and staff. Now, let's hear from Josh.
Okay, so very specific things that I have learned and that I have witnessed directly from talking with other folks who are in senior roles across higher ed. The first thing was building partnerships across campus. So not just working in silos, but thinking about who are the folks that are directly impacted by the work that we do and not waiting for them to reach out, but reaching out to them directly. But in the process of doing that, personalizing how we communicate to them. So for example, thinking about how our work affects their day-to-day and how we can help them understand what we do so that we can get that future buy-in to collaborate better. And that the second aspect of advancing your organization is thinking about specifically how do we work with campus leadership. The first piece of that was getting to know all of the leadership. So not just particularly the person that our division reports to, but the associate deans of finance or the associate deans of faculty or the associate deans of international students, getting to know what each of them is most interested in, what their priorities are, how do they like to communicate, when do they like to communicate, just understanding what those relationships look like, because at the end of the day, all of those individuals are influencing our team. We may not report to them, but they're certainly working together in the dean's office or the chancellor's office on the strategic plan for the organization and how all of us fit into that.
Okay, so taking the business school complication first, I think one of the things that it's just kind of the reality for a situation like this, which, side note, there used to be 2 law schools for the university. And I believe in the last 5-6 years or so, working with the governor of New Jersey and lots of other folks, they merged those 2 schools. So now there's just 1 school. We as marketers, we can't be in the business of trying to hope or wish cast the schools to merge at some point in the distant future or anything like that. Our main priority has to be sort of really identifying who the audience is that we're targeting and really honing in on what is their journey like? What are they looking for? How can we help make that experience easier for them? And that's going to help create more opportunities to personalize. And that's where I think you can kind of like carve out, okay, this is the difference between our MBA program and the School of Camden MBA program, for example. Or here's the difference between our accounting programs and the accounting program that they have. You have to kind of focus on what you can control and not get too caught up in the politics of the university and how things are going. Because I think when you do that, it's much easier to identify like, okay, this is our audience. Here's specifically what they're looking for. Here are some keywords that would help us in that process. Here are some billboards that support our brand and how we want to communicate to this audience. That's also differentiating between what the School of Camden is doing, for example. There's just a lot more, I think, that strategically that we can do in order to control the controllables. And while we do that, sure, it's helpful to get to know the staff that are working at the School of Camden. I recently had the privilege of meeting some of their staff there that are working on their marketing. I now have a little bit better understanding of the scope of their resources, the things that they're looking to do versus what we do, for example. But that takes effort. It takes effort and it takes time to want to get to know folks and understand, like, okay, we're not competitors in that sense. Like, we can all go out and hang out and meet at Rutgers events. We're trying to do what's in the best interest of our schools. Mm-hmm. So from a staff standpoint, those folks don't think like that. They don't think about the competition in the grand scheme of things, maybe the way that the deans do. So I think that focus on what we can control and really honing in on who our audience is and how we can reach those audiences, A, and then B, still take time to get to know the folks who are in similar positions to ours in that other institution so that we can have a better sense of what they do. They can have a better sense of what we do. When it makes sense, we can share resources and things like that. And that can be a healthy relationship. I kind of think about this in two ways. First, like you mentioned, there's things that we do within our own team. And then second, there are things that we do across departments in the school. So with respect to our own team, I tend to think that within our own team, the first thing that has to happen is that a team needs to feel comfortable talking openly about what it is that we do and how we want to work together. I think too often when I see folks putting out job descriptions for needs to be collaborative and all of these other things, I don't truly feel like folks understand how to make that happen. And it's not just going to be like, well, you have these folks that all work together. Why aren't they collaborating? Or they should just figure it out. You have to really take time to understand, as an individual, understand what's your preferences. How do you like to do things? How do you like to work? How do you like to communicate with folks? And talk openly about that process. To give a very specific example, one of the things that I've had the opportunity to organize and lead this year for our team is getting together specifically for the purpose of talking about what is it that each person does in the course of marketing a graduate program. So taking a real example so that we can not be too theoretical and talk about what does our web developer do with respect to marketing the MBA program? How do they do that? What's involved in the process? Who do they need to work with in order to accomplish their goals and their role for that activity? And then you go around the room and have each person talk about their experiences in that way. And there's lots of different ways to kind of do this, but in our case, we put together a document, and that in that document it says, using this example, marketing the MBA program, here are all of these major categories of work: advertising, web development, content strategy, social media, and things like that. And we listed all of the tasks that each individual came up with that supports that main goal. And then gave the opportunity, and this is this part's still ongoing, but encouraging two, maybe groups of three, to talk together over the next couple of months about their work, how they like to work together, what's their preferences, what could work better. For example, if somebody is writing a news article that is going to be used in an email campaign, then the person who's managing the email campaign and the person that's writing the article, that's an opportunity to talk about what are some of the things that the audience is looking for? What are they reacting to when they're engaging with that email, so that the person writing that article can kind of take that into consideration when they're writing future articles, for example. But again, the point is you have to talk about these things. It's not just going to happen. And so I had the privilege of just helping the team think about processes and preferences and style, and all of that stuff has surfaced this documentation that we put together that sort of collects our experiences so that we can say, okay, when we talk about marketing a program, it typically looks like this. Here are all of the tasks. Here's who's responsible for those things. Here's what they need in order to support their task. And that can be a loose representation of how we collaborate. Of course, you still got to continue to update that information, and you still have to continue to work together and continue to refine that process. But it starts by having those open conversations. And that might mean, instead of having a 90-minute team meeting going over all of these random projects in the team, we have a 90-minute meeting where we're just talking to each other about things that we think are working well and things that aren't working well. We're making time to be more reflective of process, because if we can get process down, that's going to make those projects work a whole lot easier. And so that's 1 month-long project and exercise that I've been working on. And just for clarity, our team has 10 people altogether. So between a communications group, a advertising group, if you will, and then a web services group that connects the two of them, just bringing all those folks together to talk about things, again, using a very specific example so that folks can have something tangible to latch on to understand what's working and what's not working. And it's really been helpful. I think it's surfaced things that were assumed, and now we have more explicit conversations about things. It's helped identify maybe behaviors and review processes that don't need to be there. So again, those things are maybe going to come out the wrong way in the middle of a project. But when you sort of put the project aside and you're just having casual conversation, I think that also makes it a lot easier for folks to feel safe having more of okay, it's not about where I am right now. It's just, we had this experience. I wonder if we can do this thing differently going forward. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that goes into it, but that has been really helpful from a team perspective.
Yeah, that's great. I love the intentionality behind that.
Josh, congratulations on being inducted into the Enrollify 2024 Hall of Fame. Your leadership and commitment to collaboration continue to inspire professionals across the higher ed community. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.